Your girls have been with you through every moment of your life. They were with you when you felt unbreakable, and with you when you had your heart broken. They were with you when you shared your love with the world, and with you when she became your world. They're still with you right now. But how well do you know them?
Every time I hear the alarm bell go off in school, I think it's an air raid.
A lot of houses in our neighborhood have been destroyed. I like to close my ears and sing songs whenever the bombs come close.
I'm worried our new neighbors won't like us.
But I know it's all gonna be worth it. I just want my family to be safe. But these are not my words.
These are not my words.
These are not my words.
I would like to call Elder Michael Shockley to the stage to cover us in prayer.
Could we bow our heads, please? With humble hearts and clear minds, Lord, you created the heavens and earth, and then you gave the spoken word and created light. And you created all of us. You created man before man was formless. Now, Lord, today, let this spoken word go out and light our minds, light our hearts, so we can be educated, Lord, on what these very wonderful guests are about to share with us, Lord. And as we are learned and as we are educated, may we go out and to those who are receptive, may we share to them what we were blessed to have today. In thy blessed Son name, Jesus Christ, may we all say, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, sir. All right, so today, as I indicated, we're talking about the media. And before we get into our panel discussion, we want to pay homage and honor someone who has been bringing the news to Cleveland residents for a very long time. Our honoree today, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, but I'm not going to try and read his entire bio. I found it very interesting once I received it. I have known him through the years from my days as a newspaper reporter and editor and seeing him out and about, but did not truly know all that he had accomplished in his life. So our honoree is Mr. Ulysses Glenn, and he is the founder and editor of the Eastside Daily newspaper. It is a small paper, but it is an effective paper. It is a paper that brings information to a specific community, and the residents of the Woodland and Buckeye areas, Kinsman, they take pride in knowing that he's still there and he's still fighting the cause of bringing the news to them. But I want to tell you a little bit about him. He was born in a place called Itta-Bena, Mississippi, and as a young child, though, he came to Cleveland. So despite his roots in the South, his growth and maturity took place here in Cleveland, Ohio. He was also, I should say, educated in the Cleveland Public Schools. He was in the second grade at Quincy Elementary School. And then they had redistricting, but it's not the redistricting that we are familiar with. This was just transferring him from Quincy to Giddings. And while he was at Giddings, he had the fortunate opportunity to have a teacher named Mrs. Motley. And for those of us who are, and it's actually before my time per se, but I remember his name, but if you know anything about the Cleveland Browns and the history of the Cleveland Browns, then you would be familiar with the name Marion Motley. And that was her husband. And Mr. Glenn had an opportunity to learn a lot about football on Monday mornings when Mrs. Motley came in proudly talking about what her husband and the Cleveland Browns had done the day before. That is just a really interesting piece of information, I think, being a Cleveland Browns fan. Another aspect of his life that I found just astounding is he's a boxer. I had no clue, but then again, it's a little before my time, and you learn things when you research and when you ask questions, and I asked for a bio, and he sent me his bio. And actually, he was not only an amateur Golden Gloves boxer, but he also was the recipient of a silver medal in the United States Annual Boxing Championship, and he had a professional match in Canada. He didn't have a long boxing career, but he was 5-0. So that sounds good to me. What about you? What you think? That means that's a man that I wouldn't want to be messing with on the streets. So Mr. Glenn was educated in the Cleveland Public Schools at Cleveland State University, as well as the Graduate School of Journalism at Kent State University. He was an educator with the now defunct Urban League Street Academy, and he also taught journalism at Cuyahoga Community College on the Metro campus. He has also served as Secretary of Cleveland Boxing and Wrestling Commission. During his tenure on the commission, he served under former mayors Dennis Kucinich, George Voinovich, and Michael R. White. Currently, as I said, he is the publisher of the Eastside Daily News. He has held that position since it opened in 1980. Mr. Glenn has given a lot to this community, and this is just a little token of our appreciation for the work that you're doing to continue to unite and build communities through the Eastside Daily News. So if you would come forward, we have a little token of our appreciation. Let's give him a round of applause.
I'd like to thank the City of Cleveland and Ms. Shelley Shockley and everybody else that's involved with recognizing me during Black History Month for the work that I do with Eastside Daily News. Also, I'd like to thank the mayor, Mayor Frank Jackson, which we go back a long way, and with sponsoring the Black History Program, in which the other day, I think that they celebrated on Saturday, the 43rd anniversary that they raised the Black Nationalist flag here at City Hall, which was an honor actually. And I'm just proud that they selected me to honor me for this event, and that they recognize the accomplishment of not only me, but other blacks who came before me as well. And I'm just proud to receive this award. And I want to thank the other black journalists who encouraged me in journalism as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so in a few minutes we're going to actually start our panel, but I wanted to give you guys an idea of sort of what made me decide to do this. So each year during Black History Month, I have the fortune or the unfortunate to host a day, and it is always around the media, and that's because I have a history in the media. I worked for the Colin Post newspaper for more than 20 years. I was the political reporter and news editor there, city editor there, and then I went on and worked for the now defunct Cleveland, what was it called? No, not the press. No, not the press. I did work for the press though before I actually got a real job. That was probably my first journalism job. I was a stringer for the Cleveland Press when I was still in high school. So the media is in my blood. Unfortunately, I don't work in the media on a daily basis, but I am the managing editor of Phenomenal Woman magazine, something that I do in my spare time. So I'm always trying to understand and paying attention to how we are delivering news, how we, as residents, citizens of this world, are receiving our news. I feel that right now in the city of Cleveland, we are being shortchanged. We no longer have a daily newspaper. If you go to cleveland.com, that is supposed to be our answer for a daily newspaper. I myself like a newspaper. I'm not a big fan of reading my news on the internet, but then again, I am of a certain age. I'm not old yet, but I came up when your parents got up each morning and they read it, you watched them sit and read a newspaper. And just as a little caveat, that is sort of where I got my interest in the media. When I was a child, whenever we traveled, I don't care what little small town we were in, I always wanted to get a newspaper to see what was going on in that town that I wasn't even going to be in. We were just at the rest stop, but it interested me. And it was something that everyone in my family knew, so if I happened to be asleep during a rest stop, my dad always made sure he got me a paper. So that's where my love of journalism comes from. But if you realize over the last several years, we have seen as I said, no longer a daily newspaper here. The Call and Post staff has diminished to 2, maybe, 3, I'm not sure, because I don't keep in touch with that. And then we have the Eastside Daily News that comes out regularly. We have Triumph Magazine. We have Phenomenal Woman Magazine. We have a lot of smaller niche magazines, but when you think about where do you get your news from, that's a challenge nowadays. And as quiet as it's kept, a certain someone would like for us not to have any news except for what he feels is important and necessary for us to hear and know about. And so it's something that I think that we have to be diligent about guarding our rights to a free press. I understand that it costs in order for us to bring it, but particularly as an African American community, we have to figure out a way that we celebrate and support those who are trying to bring the news to us. And through that, they are strengthening our communities because you begin to know what's going on around you. When I was at the Call and Post, one of my pet peeves, I'll say, because when I first went there, I said I was never going to work at the paper. And the reason I said I was never going to work at the paper is because what I had always seen was a newspaper, in my opinion, that was more interested in the crime that happened in our community than the good things. So when I have if you tell me about what's going on criminally wise, is there a trend? I want to know, is there a trend going on? So is that something we need to enlighten our community about? Be aware of this. Make sure you're locking your doors and you're, taking these precautions. I want to look at it from that standpoint. I don't just want to look at it from the gore factor. But today, our news comes in a number of ways. It comes in podcasts. It comes through blogging. It also comes through newspapers, but it also comes through live streaming radio. And these are a lot of things that a lot of us don't know about. So today I want to introduce you to some folks who are actually doing this on a day-to-day basis. And as I call your name, if you'll just come forward and take a seat, and we'll get started. So Mr. Glenn, if you'll come and take a seat. We already know that you're with Eastside Daily News. We also have with us Courtney Otrix, and she is a blogger and a communications manager with Global Cleveland, but I'll let her tell you more about her when we get started. We also have Shayna Black. She also has a blog, and she does a little podcasting as well. She'll tell you more about herself when she comes forward. We have Felicia Haney. She's representing Chill Talk Radio. That is live streaming, but in her own right, she is the owner of a public relations firm, but she'll tell you all about that when we do introductions. We have Mr. Larry James. Mr. James is the owner-operator of a new radio TV network, KAZ. He'll tell you more about himself when he gets here. And last but certainly not least, we have Mr. Earl Smith of E.B. Smith Project. He does podcasting. So if you give all of our panelists a round of applause, I'd appreciate it. And then we will get started with some introductions and then some Q&A.
Good afternoon. My name is Shayna Black, and I am the creator of Black Girl in the CLE. It is a blog, which started off as a blog, and kind of like Courtney, the idea is to showcase Cleveland from the sisterly perspective. I, too, was tired of all my friends wanting to leave, and I got to get out of Cleveland, there's nothing to do. There's plenty to do, but I think our difference is mine is more geared for the Generation Xers that are looking to find their lives as their children get older and figure out where do I fit in, as opposed to her millennial audience. So same thing, I go out, we write about events. Every Friday there's a newsletter of 30 plus activities that are happening in the greater Cleveland area that might appeal to the African American woman just looking for something to do. And we also use it as a community platform, so we encourage people to come out and write if they go someplace fun or awesome, knowing that I and my friends can't cover everything. And then we also talk about health topics and relationship topics and things that are just geared toward us enjoying our lives here in Cleveland as Clevelanders. I also started a podcast, the Black Girl in CLE podcast, and a few others. And I think to answer your question, where did I get started in media? I had always loved media and music and radio before I knew what media was. I went to college, dropped my political science major, and got a Bachelor's of Arts in Media from Mount Union, and have just been a fan, a lover, and curator ever since.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Felicia Haney. I am a journalist, publicist, fashionista, and a Muslima. But today I'm here to talk about myself as a journalist. So I've probably been working as a journalist in some form or another for the past 15 years. I did start out freelancing when I lived in New York City, moved home to Cleveland, and I got a job at the Call & Post newspaper, historic Black newspaper that you've been hearing about since you got here. So I've had the pleasure of working there. I did 13 years there, recently left and pursued my own public relations business that I do full-time. And I also work part-time teaching students in all different aspects, mostly mentoring, but also teaching them about journalism. So I do that in the Cleveland Heights School District. And I'm happy to be here today. Do you need to know anything else?
No, I think that covers it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Well, praise the Lord, hallelujah, and thank you, Jesus. Hi, I'm Larry James, the owner of KAZ Radio Television Network. Thank you, Shelley, and congratulations, Mr. Ulysses there, on your great work with the newspapers. And I just want to let you know that's my beautiful wife standing over there, Kathy Rothenberg James. How you doing, sweetheart? KAZ Radio Television Network is a social media broadcaster. So what does that mean? We broadcast on all social media platforms simultaneously. So you can see some of our shows on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, Roku TV, Apple TV, and Fire Stick TV. We have the ability to broadcast all over the world, wherever there's a smartphone, wherever there's a computer, wherever there's an iPad, we're broadcasting. Some of our most favorite shows are shows like Queen on the Scene with Lady Gilmore. Some of you may know her. Thank God for her. We have shows that talk about everything from Jesus to sports. So it was an idea that I had way back in the 1990s when I was at WABQ as an intern for one of their shows there. And I said, you know what? What if we could take this platform and put it on social media? At that time, I think it was only YouTube. The devil is a lie. And so now we are able to broadcast worldwide, and I'm just looking for some folks really that want to share their stories and want to share their stories to people all over the world on a live television platform. KAZ Radio Television Network is the place to have that done. And that's all I have to say for right now. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I am privileged to be on this stage with Ulysses and Mr. James, because those are the people that helped me focus on what I need to do. I've been knowing him probably 40 years. He's right up the street from my dad. So I own WEBS Radio Podcast and WEBS 24-hour R&B radio. I got into media in 2004. I did a local show here called Gospel in the Hood, and then I was on a show with DJ Ronnie Knight for 2.5 years called Showtime. It's Showtime. I became very interested into media because we as a people need more information, all right? The newspapers were not doing well in our city, not giving us the right information. In podcasting presently now, I am hosting and producing a podcast out of the East Cleveland Public Library, and we do one on blues and culture. And now that's not just about blues, but it's about the culture that created the blues. We have a big story to tell, and a lot of us still don't listen. Even though 40% of the people listen to podcasts, only 12% of African Americans listen to podcasts, and is yet still growing. So I just encourage all of you to reach out. If you want more news, you're not going to be able to find it in the traditional places. You're going to have to find places like Eastside News and the other professionals up here. You're going to have to reach out and grab your news. I intend on staying in the media to be able to give more information for people, because I believe that if we have more information, we're more empowered and more to do better for our community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. So one thing that you all have touched on, and I hate having to speak to you and you're behind me, but is the fact that we are reaching these audiences in different ways. And one of the ways that we're reaching them that I find very intriguing is the whole podcast and live streaming radio show. So the first person I'm going to ask to talk about the live streaming of radio, and the reason it intrigues me is because radio was popular before I was born, in terms of that was where you got your news from. That was all you really had. Radios came before televisions, and I was born in the television age. So, but I recall stories of sitting around listening to the radio, but that was never something I did. But it seems as though we're sort of going back that way when we talk about live streaming radio shows and podcasting. So Felicia, if you could tell us a little bit about what the focus is and what you guys do with Chill Talk.
Sure. So somehow I got up here and said all these things about myself, but didn't mention the reason I was here, was that I produce a local radio show called Chill Talk. And Chill Talk, to me, is special, not just because I was, on the ground and building this vehicle, but just because I feel like we try to have our hand on the pulse of the city, as well as the nation and globally, about what's going on and how we can relay that message to everyone, but specifically our people. So I'm not sure if you've actually seen the show Chill Talk, but we come on every Wednesday night at on Radio 1's 1490 AM. Some of you know that as formerly WJMO. It is now WERE. So we're there every Wednesday night. And the reason I say may have seen us is because we go live. So it's not just tuning into the radio, like Shelley talked about, where people would gather around the radio and, turn the dial to 1490 and listen in your cars. But you can actually, through, the technology that we have now, you can go on your phone or pull it up on your computer or tablet, and you can see us live in the studio with our guests, hosting and talking about everything that's going on in the world. So it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club is kind of they broke the mold with that. And so we definitely, in some ways, follow in their footsteps with that. But we feel that we really are unique to Cleveland. And like I said, getting the message out to our people about what's going on. So you wanted me to mention?
That sort of answers it.
Does that answer?
I think it's sort of. Because I guess one thing we could do is poll the audience. How many of you have ever watched a Facebook Live?
So you guys are pretty familiar.
We've got a few. Okay. Anybody, I guess by a show of hands, are you consumers of the news? Where do you get your news?
NPR. Excellent source.
Anybody else? Just holler it out. News Channel 5, did I hear?
Radio, okay. News.
Television. CNN.
So I would like to add, just as Shelley has said, and not just for her generation. When I look around the room, we represent kind of a different generation, us here in this room, than the millennials or Generation Z. And so we would get totally different answers if we asked that question had some of the audience been, a little bit different age-wise. And so, that news comes from right here, mostly all day, just scrolling, clicking, things of that nature. So I feel like that's what we try to do. We try to mix traditional media in the way that we present our news, the way that we gather it, but also stay new age. And so if we have to meet the people where they are. And if the people are on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and all these other social media sources, then that's where we have to be too. So that's what we attempt to do with Chill Talk. And so it's not just necessarily us holding up our phone the whole show on Facebook Live and you can just kind of see a selfie of me, but we put a little effort into it. So we have a camera crew, kind of somewhat like you would see here. So if you watch us, we've got different views and directions, and it's really like watching a television show. And that's what we try to be. So I hope that answers the question. Okay.
So I guess the one individual that is truly doing radio type would be Mr. Smith over here, who's doing podcasting. He talked a little bit about his show that is aired or taped. Do you? Okay, it's taped on Saturdays at the East Cleveland Public Library. And so that is about the blues and the culture. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about why you chose that subject matter and what you think, what you see in terms of how you can grow your audience.
Well, I picked that subject because, so we host just a whole host of music. Blues, the blues lyrics actually narrates and give an example of how we got where we're at now. So much of our music now has changed and it doesn't tell a story, but I think the blues is telling that story. And so I decided to put together we had Ulysses on a program the other day, and I was interested to find, I've been knowing him all this time and didn't know that he was a boxer. And I found it out through this forum. And those are the type of things that I think we need to engage our community. When I just heard the sister talk about what she does and how organized it is, we are competing with what you watch on CNN. We are competing with all of those national brands. And so we have to, do the same things to get the same attention. And I hired a producer, so she runs the program, and I got a host, and I sit and engineer and direct the program. And she's a paid intern. So just to make sure that the show has the right timings, because some of our attention spans are so short that we have to follow the same rules. We have to follow the same exact rules with timing and being able to place commercials. And when we do, after we tape it, we have to put it on a platform, and some of those platforms pay us by putting advertising in. So if you're just rambling on and talking too much, there's no place to actually put an advertising in. So I control how much of that we do because I really want the information to get out. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. Podcasting is tough because sometimes people who host it believe that everybody wants to hear everything they have to say. That's not true. It's about content. And so what I preach to my team every week, we have a meeting on Thursdays, and I say it's about the content, it's not about you. And I'll edit, and sometimes it takes an extra time. I'll have the engineer edit most of the host conversation out just so we can get the guests to speak. It's all about the information. If all you're doing on your podcast and your media is talking about yourself, you probably should do a show about yourself. The newspapers, I try to get the same information the newspapers will give. For instance, Ulysses was telling us about an incident that was happening a week prior to that. Well, because our show is so timeless, I didn't focus on that incident, but we kind of talked about what created the violence and how did we get here. And so we were able to talk and investigate what he thought drove the violence there. So it becomes a timeless conversation, so we can constantly have that conversation.
So, Shana and Courtney, both of you can take this question, or either of you can take this question. Your platforms are more event-based, not necessarily news as some would think of news, but the one thing that I think that I truly liked and I think it was yours, Courtney, when you talked about in your bio about trying to change the thought process mindset of individuals who host events and who are not targeting our audiences for one reason or another. And can you talk a little bit about how you've seen what you're doing affect change in that area?
Hi. Yes, I think I created my platform to make sure we're more included, right? A great example would be literally 2 days ago, I'll just say it, Cleveland Marriott hosted an event for bloggers. And all of the bloggers who were there posted pictures, Cleveland Marriott posted pictures, and there was literally no color in the room. And I do this a lot, even with local organizations like Engage Cleveland and others. When I don't see people who reflect our community in the picture, it makes me ask the question, how are you promoting the event? Who are you intentionally inviting? Because there's so many of us here, right? There should never be a room that doesn't include us that is about the city of Cleveland. So I always, on my platform, I shed light to these situations, and I ask my audience, who would love to attend this? Let's reach out to these people, send an email, let me collect the emails, I'll send them to whoever the organizer is, because it's so important to have events in Cleveland that speak to our community, or restaurants that want to invite us to try and sample their restaurants. And I think that my platform does that, and it does it well, because even if I'm promoting events or restaurants, if something happens in a community, I use that same platform to try to spread the word about the news or anything that's happening in Cleveland. So I think, did I answer your question? Oh, okay.
Do you want to add to that, Shana? I think in addition, the other piece for Black Girl in CLE is that we look at what stops us, the point of access, what stops us from going. So it's one thing, absolutely, that we don't know, and that's kind of the idea of how we started. So when we talked about, I think someone said they listen to radio for their news, or we watch News Channel 5. I always say we know when, as a Black community, we know when Tyler Perry's coming, we know when those plays are coming, those comedy shows, but many of us did not know how to get tickets to Hamilton. Many of us did not know when that ticket window opened up for exhibits at the Art Museum. And so that's kind of one of the things that we like to promote, is to make sure that we're not seeing the sold out sign where everyone else knows how to get access. And so even with the podcast is specifically about answering some of those questions more so. So we did an episode on riding the RTA and what that transit looks like for East Side versus West Side, and standing outside for an hour just trying to get to work, and the implications of that. But on the other hand, we host events because it's one thing to see the event, but how many of us think that's not for us? Even when people do want us to come, or my girlfriend doesn't want to come and I want to try something new. So that's one of our hashtags, is to try new things. And so our piece is, let us host an event in a safe space so that you know, hey, I like this silent disco thing. So when I see a silent disco somewhere else in the city, maybe I'll go out. Or let me do this trivia night, this pub trivia. I liked it here, I liked it in this setting, I kind of get it. So I'm not scared to go out when I see that some other place is doing it. I think Courtney and I are totally in sync about getting access, but for me at Black Girl in CLE, if we don't show up to those places, marketed or not, we're definitely going to lose our place in those places. And so we started with the idea that that people travel here to Cleveland to visit, to go to the Severance Hall, to go to the Rock Hall. We've seen the national coverage of the RNC, the All-Star Game is coming. And the question, of course, is where are we at and why aren't we there? But then the other question is, how many of us are going to those places that are in our backyards anyway, because we're so bogged down with home and school and kids and family and work obligations. So that is our, that's kind of the whole premise of Black Girl in CLE, is let's break out of our comfort zone, let's get out of those neighborhood spaces, because this city has been designed that if you live in Lakewood, you can do everything in Lakewood. If you live in Bedford Heights, you can stay in the Bedford Heights, Maple Heights area and never really have to engage any further. And so I think we're missing out. And so for us, it's really about kind of breaking through some of the mindset issues that, well, my friend said that she don't want to try this thing, so I guess I'll stay home too. And creating a space, a safe space for Black women or whomever to come out, try this thing, and let's go places together. And so the next step that we're taking is, as opposed to being invited to the influencer events, is let's have these. So now we have organizations saying, why don't you bring out 30 women to the Ritz-Carlton for a tour to see what we're doing here. And so for me, it's really not necessarily about me going all the places and telling you, hey, this is great, but really putting that back in the hands of community members to say, hey, they're opening their doors to us. They want us to try this thing. Let's try it ourselves.
Okay, we're going to turn it over to some of the more seasoned individuals at this time. So when we talk about newspapers, I want to ask Mr. Glenn, how has the impact of the changing face of media, how has it impacted your business?
Well, basically, with the newspaper industry, it's kind of revolutionized and everything. When I started a newspaper business, all you needed to have was a desk and a typewriter, and you could actually put together a story and get it to a news organization. But now it's kind of changed, actually, because basically, like every second, news is breaking. Actually, you're watching on CNN, you're watching on the internet, and so news is constantly changing, actually. But one thing with print newspapers, people, as Ms. Shockley had pointed out earlier, that she remembered as a kid watching her parents read the newspaper and everything. And I think newspaper is something that people still enjoy doing, actually, is picking up a newspaper, whether it's a daily newspaper, a weekly newspaper, or a community newspaper. They still like that idea of actually feeling something physical, and with something that's physical, that they could take that information once they get it, and they could pass it on to somebody else, actually. I remember Don Freeman, they had a book signing for him up at the East Cleveland Public Library, and we did a story on him, his book signing and everything. And I dropped some of the books off at one of the local mosques, and some person picked up the paper, actually, and called Don Freeman and told him that, hey, this paper has you in it and everything. And then he wanted to know about getting a copy of it. And so that's the difference with the newspaper, is that it's something that's physical and it's permanent, and you're recording a record of what's happening in the community and everything. But the industry has revolutionized that you could find out information so quick, actually, within seconds, actually. News is breaking and everything. And but newspapers is something I think we still gonna need, actually. And I think newspapers are gonna be around for a long time, actually. What we do too, aside from our newspaper, we put out our website too, so people go to the website as well. So we have a dual way of putting out the news, actually. And some of the people that's here is talking about their podcasts and their blogging and everything. Those are new revolutionary ways of putting out news and informing people. And as journalists and everything, that's what we have to do, is inform the public on what's going on with news events and everything.
Thank you. So I think you're right. I know that I'm an advocate for newspapers, books. I'm not one who likes to read digitally. I will if I have to, but I need especially when I want to read a book or a newspaper, I really want to curl up with it. So we're going to talk about Cass TV and radio. His whole platform is, again, they're streaming, but he's trying to go much further. If you listen to what he said, he can be broadcasting right here in Cleveland, and you could be in New York and see his broadcast, because there's so many platforms. What do you see as the next step for Cass TV and for media as a whole, say in the next 5 years? Where do you think we'll be?
Shelley, that was a very good question. Here's where we're going to go. What I see KAZ Radio Television Network doing over the next few years is, as a matter of fact, we started doing web episodes. There's a family called the Rankin family down in Atlanta, Georgia, and they asked us to broadcast their reality show. And so just yesterday, we broadcasted their reality show on all those networks that I mentioned: Facebook, YouTube, Apple TV, Roku TV, Fire Stick, and Periscope. And so, I don't believe it. I don't believe this. I thought I turned it off. I apologize. What's really awesome about that is that for them to be able to get their webisode or their episodes on national television or regular television would be nearly impossible unless somebody picked them up. We picked them up and started broadcasting yesterday their reality show, and it's a very good show, so please go check it out. It's called Unapologetically Me. You can see it on kazradio.tv. That's kazradio.tv, and you can Google it and you'll see all the different shows that we have there. And one other thing that I'm seeing is starting to happen is not only do we broadcast radio shows like Felicia does. But what we found is that people like to read and watch. If you start looking at Facebook now, you'll start seeing closed captioning on some of the shows or on some of the Facebook Live. So we started to do that as well. We started that up this week, where when people are scrolling, we've noticed that you got to, like EB said, you got to catch their attention. And the attention span is really, really, really short. So I read a study somewhere where when people are in the bathroom going through their Facebook, they don't necessarily want to listen to anything, but if they see something or they can read it, they'll watch it. So that's the next phase of what we're doing. So as far as this whole media thing is going, personally, I think not only is it the wave of the future, it is the way it's going to go. People are looking to get their news on tablets, on their iPhones and Androids, and even television sets. If you think about it, for those of you who got Fire Sticks at home, you can watch with no commercials. This is where we're going. People don't want to be interrupted when they're watching Scandal or they're watching, one of their favorite television shows. And so that's one of the awesome things about webcasting and webisodes and what we do at KAZ Radio Television Network. We can broadcast anything, as long as we're given the copyright permission to do so. We can broadcast anything worldwide. And that's the way the future of television and radio is going. Thank you.
Okay, so you've heard a little bit from everybody, and one thing that I'm gathering from all of this that I think is very important for all of us to understand is if we want to, no matter what, if you're coming from the standpoint of a entrepreneur, a business person, or if you're coming from the space of being a parent or grandparent, or just someone who wants to know things, we have to stay abreast of the trends that are taking place. If you want to know what your kids are doing, they're not picking up a newspaper. As he said, they are scrolling. As much as I don't like to gather my news from those sources, I do scroll, and I do find things out, because that's how I found out about all of these people. By doing research and someone's sharing or tagging something that brought them to my attention. I truly am elated to see so many people who look like me, who are involved in the next form of media, so that we're not left out, because oftentimes that's what happens. We're still behind the 8 ball when it comes to this, because the numbers are so few, but more and more people are doing these things to bring about community. And that's what today was all about, is to show you some of the ways that we are building community in the city of Cleveland through media, no matter what the form of media, the format may be. So before we close out, I will allow everyone 1 minute if you have something that you'd like to say to conclude. And then I will close out the program, and we have samples in the back from Black Box Cafe. They are located in the Department of Public Utilities building down the street during morning through lunch. So I believe they open up probably about 8 o'clock in the morning or before, and they go until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But they also have a catering service. So you will be receiving a red ticket. Take your ticket to the table, and you can get a sampling of some of their goodies. But until then, who wants to give a few remarks, before a closing remark?
I'll say something. I just definitely wanted to say congratulations to Mr. Glenn. I'm so glad that you all chose to honor him. I feel that sometimes in this day and age, because we're always scrolling and we're in this age of microwave information where we want everything right now, and we're always trying to catch the wave, if you will. And so sometimes because of that, we're more focused on whatever's hot, whatever's trending, whatever big news source has picked something up, right? And you have to fight through a lot of white noise sometimes to get your story heard. Well, with people like Mr. Glenn and with community newspapers, he's here to tell stories that may have otherwise gone untold. You know, without outlets like Eastside News, you know, some people wouldn't have a voice, wouldn't have that story to be told, and a lot of times, you know, we get it there first before it becomes the bigger story. So I just want to say congratulations to you again. My hat is off to you, almost 40 years in business. That is awesome, amazing, and just keep doing your thing.
Anybody else? Don't be shy. None of you are shy people.
I think my closing thought for the day is to always be open. So even though I'm on the panel, you know, there are people on the panel that I haven't met yet myself. So the idea that Cleveland is a great space to start. And so, you know, even with podcasting or a website, it is super easy to get started if you have a story to tell. And so citizens journalism is a thing. And if you're sitting out and you're seeing stuff in your neighborhood, you can start. My first podcast was just started with a cell phone, and there's apps that if you pick up your cell phone, you can just talk in it and it starts recording, and it goes across Apple, Google, all kind of podcasts. So that's my one statement is, if you have a story to tell, you can contact us because we love telling other people's stories, or just tell the story, because there's so many things that are happening here and different sides of things that we often don't see. And also, just look for the unique platform. So for us, it's always, let's come at it with positivity, because, you know, with Facebook and the news, you can start feeling very overwhelmed. And that's the one thing we want to promote is positivity, because otherwise we do start not liking things and we do start feeling like, oh my goodness, Cleveland. And it's a great place and it's a wonderful place. We just need to make sure that we enjoy our time here. Thanks.
So in closing, I guess I would say that the biggest thing that I think everyone needs to do, or a call to action, would be to support everybody, support our community, support newspapers like this one, because we don't exist without the support of the community. So whether it's reading an article, sharing a post on social media while you're there anyway, I think we help each other by supporting each other. So sharing the message that these podcasts exist, your podcast too, the radio shows, the blogs, because we're all in this together, right? Our goal is to see Cleveland go to the next level, and for us to always foster a sense of community through everyone that lives here. So I would say support us, support Courtney Covers Cleveland. That's my blog. Each month I cater to a different audience and try to bring unique experiences or unique things to try. So I hope you guys had a great time, and thanks for inviting me, and congratulations.
In closing, I want to say, and this is honoring Mr. Ulysses Glenn. As Felicia said, you know, I feel in my spirit that we're standing on your shoulders. You know, you were one of the first pioneers to bring black newspaper to the city. And if it hadn't been for folks like you and other, black entrepreneurs, where would we be? There would be no podcast. There would be no KAZ Radio Television Network. So, my hat off to you, sir, for, publishing and editing and typing and delivering and getting that news out to us so that we could have something to relate to. So God bless you, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Yeah, I too want to give honor to Mr. Ulysses, because he published the first article that I wrote some long time ago called From My Pew. I want to just encourage everyone to support all of the hard work that we do. Just from listening to their biographies, I can tell you that we can find cheaper ways to do some things. And besides, I want to say waste, some people think it's wasting on podcasting and blogging, but it's not a waste for us. Larry and I were talking off, thinking that we wish we had more money to have this much fun. But unfortunately, it takes a little bit of finance and some sacrifices, and sometimes we have to spend time with family and money. So all of us here, get some cards here, try to figure out how you can share their videos. You can find me on ebsmithmedia.com. I do everything from a digital recording studio to teaching trade programs. So ebsmithmedia.com, or you can just go to Google and hit WEBS Radio, and it will give you all the podcasts and internet radio. And thank you.
I just want to thank Shelley Shockley for inviting me and honoring me, and all the work she's doing for the whole month of Black History, actually. And it takes a whole lot of work to put the program on. Every day she's got something that she's doing. And at the end of the month, she's going to honor the Whitley brothers, which on a number of occasions I met them and sat down and talked with them and learned a lot about them when they started their architect company and everything. And I'd like to thank the other panelists for being here as well, and for the panelists who congratulated me for what I'm doing also. I'd like to introduce my son, Ulysses, from Washington, D.C. He came from D.C. And my friend, Constance Speed, and also Omar Kader. Omar has been working with me since 2004, actually, with the newspaper. And he's a big help, actually, with me and everything. I just want to thank him for coming down today and everything. And thank everybody for coming out today. And I'm really glad to be honored with the Media Award for this month of Black History.
Congratulations.
Okay, so Courtney sort of took my line, but I'm going to reiterate it. I do these things, and at each of these events, I ask that we all support one another. I am overly excited about what they do because of the fact that it is something that I have not actually, and I wish I had a thought of doing what they did, but I have a lot of friends and family that are like, oh, there's nothing to do in Cleveland. There is something to do in Cleveland every single day of the week. You just have to take the blinders off, open your eyes, and enjoy this city. I am a champion for our city, but I'm an even bigger champion for my people. So I need everybody, if you took away anything today, support African American businesses, those that are actually charging you a fee, or those who are putting out free information. That's what these young ladies are doing. That's what everybody basically up here, except for Mr. Glenn. Mr. Glenn is trying to run a newspaper. Newspapers need a lot of money. They get paid, but what helps them get paid, just in case you didn't know, is when you go to their site and when you click on a link and support what they're doing, you support them, and in turn you support our community. Because when we make money, we utilize that money within our community, which will help our community to grow. So thank you for sitting in today. I thank you all.